Stand in front of a monkey enclosure at any zoo on Earth, and within a few minutes, someone always says the same thing. That's basically what we came from. They watch it scratch, swing, stare back through the glass, and they feel a strange mix of familiarity and superiority, like they're looking at a rough draft of themselves. But that monkey is not your ancestor. Not even close, and the real answer to where you came from is stranger than anything printed in a textbook. So if that's not where you came from, what is? The myth didn't start as science. It started as an insult. In 1859, Charles Darwin published On the Origin of Species. He never once said humans descended from monkeys. He barely mentioned humans at all, but people panicked anyway because the implication was obvious. If species change over time, maybe we're not as special as we thought. Newspapers ran cartoons of Darwin's head glued onto a monkey's body. Preachers called it blasphemy from the pulpit. And in 1925, when a schoolteacher named John Scopes was put on trial in Tennessee for teaching evolution, the press gave it a nickname that stuck for 100 years: the monkey trial. Not the ancestor trial, not the common descent trial, the monkey trial. A joke became a fact, and nobody ever bothered to correct it. Here's what almost nobody learns. Monkeys and apes are not the same animal. Monkeys have tails. Apes don't. Gorillas, chimpanzees, bonobos, orangutans, gibbons, and you are all apes. Say that back to yourself. You are, right now, sitting there watching this, technically an ape, not descended from one. One of one. That single correction rewires the entire question. So, if you're an ape, and chimpanzees are apes, did you come from chimpanzees? No. And this is the part that changes everything. You didn't evolve from any creature alive today. Chimpanzees didn't evolve from you either. You both came from something else. Something extinct, something that split into two separate paths around 6 to 7 million years ago. Think of it like your family tree. You didn't come from your cousin. You and your cousin came from the same grandparent. That grandparent is dead. For over a century, nobody had a photograph of them. Then, in 2001, researchers digging in Chad pulled a skull out of ancient sandstone. They named it Sahelanthropus tchadensis. Roughly 7 million years old, sitting almost exactly at the moment the two branches broke apart. A face somewhere between ape and human. A brain the size of a chimpanzee's, but a spine built to stand upright, not swing through branches. Not quite ape, not quite human. In 1994, a team led by Tim White found something even stranger in Ethiopia. They called her Ardi, 4.4 million years old, with a big toe built for gripping branches and a pelvis built for walking on two legs at the same time. Not quite ape, not quite human. Caught mid-transformation, frozen in stone. And in 1974, in a dry riverbed in Hadar, Ethiopia, Donald Johanson found 40% of a skeleton that would rewrite everything, about 3.2 million years old. They named her Lucy, 3.5 feet tall, a brain barely bigger than a chimp's, walking upright as naturally as you do right now. Not quite ape, not quite human. For decades, Lucy was the closest thing to a photograph of your own grandparent that science had ever found. But bones can only prove so much. The real confirmation was hiding somewhere nobody could see it. Inside you. Humans and chimpanzees share somewhere between 98 and 99% of their DNA. Not similar. Identical, letter for letter, in the code that built your body. And there's a second piece of proof buried even deeper, one that reads like a fingerprint left at a crime scene. Every great ape on Earth carries 24 pairs of chromosomes. You carry 23. For decades, that missing pair looked like a fatal flaw in the whole theory. Then scientists examined human chromosome 2 and found the truth. Nothing was missing. 2 ape chromosomes had fused into one end to end, and the seam is still visible in your DNA today, like a scar that never fully closed. And it's not just the code that matches, it's the mistakes inside it. Almost every animal on Earth can manufacture its own vitamin C. Dogs can. Cats can. Even rats can. You can't. Neither can any other ape. Skip vitamin C in your diet for long enough, and you develop scurvy and die. For a species this advanced, that should be impossible, unless it was inherited. Buried in your genome is a broken, switched-off copy of the gene that builds vitamin C, called GULOP. It's been broken for millions of years. And every single ape alive today carries that same broken gene, in that exact same disabled spot. Separate creation doesn't explain a shared mistake. Shared ancestry does. So no, you didn't come from a monkey. You came from something that stood up in Africa millions of years before anyone was ready to call it human, that rebuilt itself piece by piece. Upright spine, gripping hands, a brain that never stopped expanding past every limit that should have shut it down. And the closest living relative of that creature is still out there right now, in a forest in Central Africa, using tools, recognizing its own reflection, grieving its dead, carrying 98% of the same code that built you. The next time you stand in front of that glass at the zoo, watching a chimpanzee stare back at you, remember what you're actually looking at. Not your ancestor, your cousin, standing on the other branch of the same dead tree, still waiting, like you are, to find out what happens next.